What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Go Fuel. Once again, joining me on the show, JT and the Don of JT and the Don. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. How's it going, man? Thanks for having us on.
It's always a pleasure. The last time JT and Don were on the show was to talk about JT's Miami Dolphins. This time it's to talk about Don's Steelers.
It's so terrible. It's blurred out.
I got the blurred background on, but you get the point. JT.
So,
you know what it is.
Last season, the Pittsburgh Steelers season ended with Ben Roethlisberger retiring from the NFL 4 years too late. This season, the Pittsburgh Steelers are entering the season with two quarterbacks that could potentially start week one in Mitchell Trubisky, who we last saw as Buffalo Bills backup. Before that, starter for the Chicago Bears, and Kenny Pickett, I believe the 20th overall pick in this year's draft out of Pittsburgh. Since this is your team, Don, we'll start with you. Trubisky or Pickett?
Listen, I want whoever is ready to go come week one. That's
such a Switzerland answer.
That should be.
You can't start out the show.
That should be who
you're supposed to come out on fire.
I'll get to my answer here. Listen, not even Ben started from week one, from game one. He was not the starter, and he went even higher with more hype than Kenny Pickett. And I personally like when rookie quarterbacks can sit, can watch, and learn, because the NFL game is no joke. It is fast. It even buried Peyton Manning for a season or two. Plus, I'm interested to see what Mitch Trubisky could do outside of the Chicago Bears offense, outside of Matt Nagy being his offensive coordinator and coach, because he had no chance there. And listen, if you go to Kenny Pickett and he struggles, then you go to Mitch and Mitch struggles, how do you go back to Kenny Pickett when his confidence is shot at that point? So you go Mitch Trubisky if he's ready, or if they're even, tied in terms of who you think should start. You go with Mitch, because if he does bad, then Kenny comes in and there's no pressure. Or if Mitch blows it up and does really well, then you can trade him before the deadline and get draft capital back that you had to give up over the past couple years. So I say you go with Mitch. If it's even, or as long as Mitch is ready, you go with Mitch, because Kenny Pickett's your long-term solution according to the way the Steelers drafted and have spoken. So you got to preserve that. Go with Mitch. Let Kenny Pickett learn the ropes.
JT?
You know what? I'm really disappointed in you. Why didn't you go with
you always are
your Hall of Fame pick? You should have said Mason Rudolph.
Why do you keep saying Hall of Fame pick Mason Rudolph?
Well, you picked him to make the Hall of Fame out of that draft. That's neither here nor there. I agree. I think it's got to be Trubisky, because, like, you brought up a good point. I think 2 years removed from Matt Nagy, like, anything is possible. It's like being released from Adam Gase. Like, you just never know what to expect from a player when that happens. And plus, I'm not really all that sold on Kenny Pickett. Like, be real. If it wasn't for a COVID-shortened season, like, will we be even having this conversation? Like, that allowed him to come back and play again. And he's been really inconsistent throughout his pick career. So I agree. I don't necessarily agree with every rookie should not play right away, because, like, some guys already in recent years have shown that's true. But I don't think Kenny Pickett is one of those guys. I think I want to see what Trubisky has in a system that's actually good, with good coaching, good weapons. Like, I think that could be something that's good. So I think he's the answer, and he should be for the whole year.
Go ahead, Marcus, but I want to know which rookie quarterback's been ready from the jump. That's all I want to know. I can't name one.
His favorite player in the world, Joseph Lee Burrow III, whatever the hell his name is, ready as a rookie, right?
Second year, though. I mean, he took his lumps.
He balled out his first year before he got hurt. He was ready. Justin Herbert was ready from the gate. Year one.
Justin Herbert
ready.
He didn't start. See, that's the thing. Did Justin Herbert start game one? No, he didn't.
Tyrod Taylor. He took over. That's first year.
But Tyrod Taylor started game one. That's my whole point. Marcus is asking out of the gate. It should be Mitch.
Out of the gate. No, yeah, Joe Burrow. Like, he was ready week one. He just had a terrible O-line and he got banged up, missed half the season.
And that's what I'm saying, though. He had to take his lumps. That's what made him great in year two.
No, he survived. That's what made him great.
Did he not learn from year one? Was he not better year two?
Yeah, he learned the slide,
right?
but it wasn't like the game was too fast for him. Like, he was balling. It's just he got hurt.
He was having a good season, but to say like he was great out the jump.
No. He wasn't great out the jump. It was that he was like he's the last that I can think of, the last guy that like you look at and say that
Kyler, I think, is in that boat too.
I have no
Dak Prescott too.
Well, Dak's a special case though, because if Tony Romo didn't get hurt, he probably wouldn't have started week one. He would.
But I feel like you can't say like, oh, because the person in front of him got injured and then he came in and played well. Well, we don't count that as being ready. Like, you're ready when your number is called.
And I think Kenny Pickett.
That is true. I do agree with you. I think I agree with you that but Dak's always like that special case just because, like, going into that season, I think we all knew that Tony Romo was going to be the starter, and then he got hurt in the preseason. Dak did, though, he did come out and play phenomenally his rookie year, though.
I think a lot of quarterbacks first year play well over the past 10 years. Despite
not being ready or initially supposed to be starting. I feel like it's Mitchell Trubisky, and I feel like it's not that close.
Mitchell Trubisky disrespected Kenny Pickett tonight.
Mitchell Trubisky is not
that's going to happen a lot.
I feel like we have to get out of our minds that Mitchell Trubisky is a bad quarterback because he's not. Mitchell Trubisky is a solid quarterback, and it's against my religion as a Packers fan to sit here and praise a former Bears player, but someone's got to do it, and I'll do it. Like, Mitchell Trubisky has been to the playoffs with the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky has won playoff games with the Bears. We saw last season with Matt Nagy that one of the reasons why Justin Fields, and really all the quarterbacks, but especially Justin Fields, didn't really look like the Justin Fields you kind of expected, aside from the fact that the team just wasn't good, was because they didn't know what they were doing offensively with Justin Fields. They never seemed to have a clear game plan, not just overall, but on a week-to-week basis. It was never clear exactly what they wanted to do with Justin Fields. And I feel like you can definitely make that exact same argument when you look back at what was going on with Mitchell Trubisky while he was there under Matt Nagy in Chicago. I thought that Pittsburgh should have got Mitchell Trubisky last season. I guess better late than never, though. But listen, we talked all leading up to this draft how none of these guys are week one ready and none of these guys are franchise quarterbacks. And if like that's still the case, just because Kenny Pickett got drafted 20th overall doesn't still negate the fact that no one was really sold on anyone in this draft class, and that includes Kenny Pickett. Now, Mitch did know heading in when he signed, when he got to Pittsburgh, that if Pickett was on the board at 20, that they would pick him, and here we are. But I still think Mitchell Trubisky is the better quarterback, just off the simple fact that he's played on this level. Like, there's no if about what Mitchell Trubisky looks like on this level. I'm not saying that Mitchell Trubisky is the best quarterback. Obviously, there are things he can do better. But you want a guy that you can plug in week one and be ready for this level without as many growing pains. Because when you look at a rookie quarterback, it's not just learning a new system. It's getting adjusted to the speed of the game and getting acclimated to being on, not playing with college guys, but now playing on the NFL with grown men. Mitchell Trubisky's been up here for a while. He knows what it takes to kind of be somewhat successful on this level and win football games. And I think Mitchell Trubisky is definitely – he's not – and it's not to be disrespectful to Kenny Pickett, but he's by far, I think, the best player or the best quarterback in the QB room. Like, I don't really think it's up for discussion. Obviously, you draft Kenny Pickett because of what those long-term implications are, like you were mentioning earlier, Don. But you're talking about this season as far as being successful this season. We're talking about getting ready for week one. I feel like that's undoubtedly Mitchell Trubisky's job. And I don't foresee a scenario, unless he gets hurt, where Kenny Pickett starts week one. I really don't see a scenario where Kenny Pickett is named as Pittsburgh starter come week one.
Well, I definitely think there's a scenario outside of injury is that Kenny Pickett gets in there and balls out. I mean, I disagree. One of you said, like, you know, just because he was taking 20, it doesn't change the fact that no one was high on these quarterbacks. Like, Steelers would have taken him at 10 if they were sitting at 10. They didn't trade up to 10 because they must have had some intel that no one was taking him before them. So, yeah. I mean, to say that there's no hype on Kenny Pickett, I think is false because –
no, it's not that there's no hype. It's that none of these guys were graded as week one starters or franchise quarterbacks. Like, if
the Steelers disagree with you because I don't think you take a non-franchise QB in the top 20. right?
I think you do if the ownership steps in and thinks that this is like the second Dan Marino, they don't want to miss out on him.
But again, then they believe he's a franchise QB. It doesn't matter who determines that in the organization, but the Steelers felt that.
I mean, you could also look at like the Steelers needed a quarterback. I mean, yes, they had Mitchell Trubisky, but like Mason Rudolph's not. I saw a report the other day.
Be careful what you say about Mason Rudolph. Somebody thinks he's a Hall of Fame player.
I saw a report the other day about all three of these guys, and they did 2-minute drills the other day in 7-on-7s. And Mitchell Trubisky did well in his 7-on-7 2-minute drill, and so did Kenny Pickett, and like Mason Rudolph threw 2 passes and threw a pick the second pass. Like Mason Rudolph's not a good quarterback, and this notion that he is, and a couple months ago when I don't know who it was, I think it was Mike Tomlin, said that you could see Mason Rudolph winning 8 games with this roster. I just don't see that happen. Mason Rudolph's not good. Mason Rudolph is hands down the worst quarterback in this QB room, and I don't think he gets a starting job on any team in the NFL. Like Mitch can go somewhere else and be a starter, and so could Kenny Pickett even as a rookie. I can't say the same thing for Mason Rudolph. Like I don't know why he's still there. If I'm just being completely honest with you.
Well, they need depths and reps, and they have
they can call you in and get more out of their preps and practice.
They have they have him under contract as a backup, so I'm sure they would lose some money with that guaranteed right now. Plus, you need as many healthy quarterbacks as you can going in. Why give them up now for another team to take them as a backup?
Oh, well, it's not that they shouldn't give him up. It's just he's not. Is really my point that he's not good.
They should give him up. I trade him in the division, get draft picks, and I dare them to start him.
I feel like to me at least, and we'll talk about it later. The Steelers start Mitchell Trubisky 1 through 17. They have a shot to make the playoffs. I can't say the same thing for Kenny Pickett if I'm just being honest. I can't say comfortably that the Steelers are potentially a playoff team with Kenny Pickett.
I don't know, man, because I feel like with any rookie player, like that first year is always unpredictable because it's like lightning in a bottle if they perform well and they don't have tape on you. So you can win about 6-7 games before people catch on to how to play you, and then obviously the next year they'll be ready. But that's the thing. It's like, yeah, Trubisky's a steady veteran presence that you feel like he shouldn't do things to lose you the game. But Kenny Pickett is like a wild card. He can come out, be the next stud, and you just never know. And teams just don't know what it looks like to play against him. So if he starts out hot, it could be successful. So, but if you're gonna bet, like Don's the betting person, he goes to Vegas, he does parlays. Like you want to bet with the safer option.
So Marcus, I agree that the safer option would be what you said, Mitch Trubisky, and I don't have any parlays going on or anything.
Today must be a holiday.
So, but the thing is, though, with Kenny Pickett, I think a lot of people forget how much experience he has now. And like, we may make fun that he played 5 or 6 years at Pitt, but he still played in a Power 5 conference, won an ACC title game, and he has all that experience. So, to be honest, if it's Mitch and Kenny Pickett, who truly does have that? Does Mitch really have that much more confidence going into this season than Kenny Pickett? I mean, Mitch has never proven it, even though we think he could do it. But Kenny Pickett right now has like the higher ceiling in terms of those two guys. So to just say that Mitch is a safer bet, probably the right thing to say. But it doesn't mean that Kenny Pickett wouldn't get this team to the playoffs if the team is really good.
I think that Mitchell Trubisky has something to prove, and I think that makes him dangerous. And I think a person with something to prove is a dangerous person, but an athlete with something to prove is even much more dangerous. And I think I'm willing to bet this will be the best Mitchell Trubisky season. Should he start week like all 17, I think this would be the best season we see of Mitchell Trubisky, and we'll see what we couldn't see in Chicago because of Matt Nagy's incompetence as a head coach. So with the coaching staff for a second, obviously Brian Flores, not long after announcing that he was suing the NFL in the class action lawsuit for racism, the Pittsburgh Steelers hired Brian Flores to be their senior defensive assistant and their linebackers coach. This was a defense last season that, outside of T.J. Watt, stunk. I think that's
Ooh.
Miley. This was not a good defense last season. This was a defense that was using Minka Fitzpatrick as a fifth linebacker because they couldn't stop the run. With that
don't forget Cam Hayward though, Marcus. You don't want Cam coming after you. It wasn't just TJ Watt.
I love Cam. With all that being said, and with all the talent that clearly does exist on this Pittsburgh defense, you have TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, you've got Devin Bush, you have Minka Fitzpatrick, and others. JT, what impact will Brian Flores' presence have on the Steelers defense this season?
I don't know if he'll really have a big standpoint from an X's and O standpoint, but I feel like he's just going to be like an echo chamber for Mike Tomlin. Like he's going to come in, coach guys to play hard. They'll play and practice tough. He'll hold people accountable. He'll just basically uphold, what do you call it? Like the Steelers mantra, whatever they call it.
The standard.
Like the Steeler.
The standard.
Yeah, the standard. They'll
standard is the standard.
Yeah, well, it wasn't last year. So he'll uphold the standard. Whatever it is now, he'll uphold it. I think he'll just be under the radar, behind the scenes, just being his normal self, tough on guys, and making sure they play through the whistle and give it their all. So I think that's his impact this year for that team.
First, JT, thank you to the Dolphins for having him come to Pittsburgh.
Oh, don't thank you. We're not associated when it comes to that.
Because I'm not sure you'll be able to measure like his impact, Marcus, but I mean, there's going to be a significant impact. I mean, I personally think that he may be the biggest addition to the team, player, coaching staff, whatever it may be, front office. I mean, I think it automatically improves the inside linebackers. You've got Devin Bush, who he's got to improve under Flores. He's got to improve. Miles Jack is there now, and I think Flores will even help a young guy like Alex Highsmith get even better. But I think not only JT mentioned good point, kind of an echo chamber for Coach Tomlin, but I think he's going to help the new defensive coordinator, Terrell Austin, a lot. And I think that's where his X's and O's, his analysis, his mind, his defensive mind is going to help, because Terrell Austin, I think, will need that help, and I think that's where Flores can come in. And then the other part too is just thinking like overall, when you have a guy, I mean, Nick Saban does this a lot with his coordinators, right? He brings in ex-NFL head coaches. Now Mike Tomlin, as a position coach, linebackers coach, inside linebackers coach, you have now a position coach that I don't know if any other position coach in the NFL has the resume Flores has, on top of former head coaching experience where, in my opinion, he was successful. I don't think he ever made the playoffs, but he was successful. And now he's your position coach as a linebacker, not even defensive coordinator, as a position coach. And you see articles in Pittsburgh already that how much respect and how much already that Flores has brought to the team. And they've only gone through like OTAs. And you've got players speaking out of how they're enjoying his coaching and what he brings to the table already. So I think the players right there, he's got the respect of the players, and it's only going to be helpful.
I think Brian Flores' impact this season will definitely be seen in the linebacking core. Like, that was the sore spot of the Steelers defense last season. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't stop a cold. Just
hopefully the inside linebackers in particular. Yep.
So the other thing too, and I tweeted this not long after he was hired, Mike Tomlin has either just turned 50 or he's approaching 50 years old, and he hasn't hinted anything about retirement, but he's 50 years old.
He's 50?
Yeah, and Brian Flores turned 40.
That tape's still fresh. He's 50? You sure about that, man?
40. So Mike Tomlin is 10 years Brian Flores is senior. Do you think I did some projecting, and I think it would make sense. Do you think whenever Mike Tomlin decides to call it quits, whether that's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, however long it is, he hasn't hinted about retirement, do you think this was also a move by the Steelers to secure their next head coach after Mike Tomlin, outside of just like this being this defense sucked last season, let's try to help it, but also like long-term thing as well of like whenever Mike, because like you said, Don, he's got the resume. You're not going to have to go through all of this, the entire coach hiring process, because you've already hired this guy. You know what he brings to the table. He'll be already in the organization, so you'll get to see him and his interactions with the organization. Do you think this is also potentially a thing where maybe a couple years from now, whenever Mike Tomlin decides to hang it up as a coach, and moves on to the front office or whatever he does, that Brian Flores will take over the reins and be the new head coach for the Steelers?
I don't think that's the way the Steelers are looking at it, and I don't think that's why they brought him in, because I think Coach Tomlin's going to try to coach there as long as he can. He still has that fire, so I don't even think in 3 or 4 years he'll be ready to go. And by then, hopefully for Brian Flores' sake, and that means it helped the Steelers too, that he's off to being a defensive coordinator and possibly a head coach somewhere else again. And so, I mean, looking down the line that much is really tough, but I just don't see, because Coach Tomlin's still so young and he still has all that energy, and he's never leaving Pittsburgh to be a head coach somewhere else. So is he going to retire that young, like in the next 4 or 5 years? I just don't see it. So I don't think that came into the mind of the Steelers. I really think it was, hey, there's this valuable coach out there. Here's a big need that we have. This is a perfect marriage. Let's do it. And I don't think the head coaching stuff came into play here. That's just my opinion.
What about you, Jay-Z?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's all about Tomlin when he's ready to step away, because they're not going to fire him. Like, he would have to go in the tank for like a decade for them to do that. And even
you probably still wouldn't fire him.
Yeah. As long as he's still got a fresh fade, he's still going to coach. And as long as he's coaching for the Steelers, they're not going to fire him. Like Don said, like, USC couldn't even afford to take him off the market. So I think it's what he said. Like, it was perfect opportunity. There was a value out there that nobody was seeing as a value. And they're like, all right, cool. We'll take this guy. We know what he's about. We know the experience that he has, and put him on the team. It's a great addition.
Let's stick with the defense and talk about T.J. Watt, who I mentioned earlier. We know that Aaron Donald's the best player he's the best player in football, but
don't tell him that.
He's also the best defensive player in football. T.J. Watt last season tied Michael Strahan's record for most sacks in a single season, 22.5, in the final game of the season on the road against Baltimore. Don, is T.J. Watt the best linebacker in football?
Now, when you say linebacker, are we talking just specifically outside linebackers or inside linebackers too?
No, linebacker.
Linebacker.
That LB next to their name.
It's tough.
It's a tough question because, it all depends on, it'd be like saying, is Travis Kelce the best, receiver out there, right? Because technically he's a receiver and he gets all these yards, catches touchdowns. He's tough to game plan around. So, like, I look at TJ Watt as a defensive end, but they have him listed as a linebacker. So,
well, I tried to cut him some bail because he's not the best defensive end in football. So I tried to cut him some bail and give him something.
Just call him an edge rusher. Like he's an edge rusher at the linebacker position. That's basically what he is.
That is
rusher. Is he the best edge rusher in football, Don?
Is he the best? I mean, you've got to say yeah. If that's going to be the question, then you've got to say yeah, because again, look at the numbers, and he is starting to get to the point where if you don't put a double team out there, like almost every play, he's going to ruin either the run play, the mesh play, or he's going to get a sack. And you look at the numbers, 22.5 sacks. You said it, broke or tied the single season record for sacks. He had 5 forced fumbles, only behind Bosa and Chandler Jones. He had 3 fumble recoveries, number 1 in the league, 21 tackles for losses, number 1 in the league. I mean, yeah, you've got guys like Bosa, Chandler Jones, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, Myles Garrett, but what he can do in terms of, like, when you don't account for him, all right, it's an issue. And so best edge rusher, yes. I mean, Myles Garrett's really probably number 2, but I've got TJ Watt best edge rusher. Do you want me to answer the linebacker question?
I would like for you to, yeah.
All right. So I'll answer the linebacker question. And, man, this one's tough. So I'm going to say, if we're talking linebacker here, I'm going to go, it may not be a popular choice, but I think it's Darius Leonard, because Darius Leonard, athletically gifted, right? I think when we put TJ Watt on a receiver, which I don't know why we would ever do that. We're taking away one of our best strengths, putting him out wide when TJ Watt should be rushing every down. But that's my opinion. Unless you have him dropping in the coverage on a blitz, but that's a different question. But so when you put TJ Watt out there, he's not really defending anybody. Darius Leonard can hang, I think, at least most of the time with the running backs.
He's basically a safety.
Yeah, like he is probably a smaller size safety. So when you look at Darius Leonard, then the pass defense, because the run defense is there. And the pass defense, though, is where he excels. Since 2020, he has twice the number of forced fumbles than any other off the ball linebacker. So that's not TJ Watt, right? Like off the ball linebacker. So think about it. We talk about, can he stop the run? Absolutely. He forces fumbles, right? Twice the number of any other off the ball linebacker. Think about that. Then in pass coverage, 4 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, and this guy's not even at his peak yet. So that's why I put him as the number one. If you're talking about overall linebacker, I've got Darius Leonard.
Where does just real quick, where does Fred Warner slot? Does Fred Warner slot behind?
He's got to be 2.
You know, don't forget about a guy named Bobby Wagner. I know he's getting up there in age.
He's top 5, but
the reason why Fred Warner, I hesitate putting him right behind Darius Leonard is because his run defense still a little suspect. I know he's improved it since coming out of college, but again, if we're talking well-rounded best overall, then I would even start putting TJ Watt like 2, 3, or 4 there, because what he can do to get to the quarterback, that's got to account for something. So I've got TJ Watt top 3. The question is, where do I put Fred Warner and Bobby Wagner?
Does Von Miller slot into your top 5 too?
Ooh,
he's in the
5.
Watt category because he's basically an edge, and
so we're kind of like going off on a tangent.
When you put Von Miller in coverage, like they're gonna tear him up. And like I don't even think Von Miller is a good run defender at this point right now.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like when you look at TJ Watt, he's coming with 21 tackles for losses, Mark. So he's not just coming off the edge, getting to the quarterback, like 5 forced fumbles, like he's doing it all. I think at this point, Von Miller, I don't even know if he's top 5 overall linebacker. Nah, he's not top 5 anymore.
Okay. JT, are you with Don? Is Darius Leonard the best linebacker?
I pretty much, the reason I said I kind of took this off course is I had the same thing. Like I don't think of TJ Watt as a linebacker. I think of him as an edge person with LB next to his name. So if I'm grading people specifically on that, yes, best edge linebacker, rusher, whatever you want to call it, like he's the best, and numbers prove it. And I think last year he tied that record missing like 2 games or something like that. So
2 games.
He could easily have broken it.
My entire point about him tying the record. I know a lot of people going into the 17-game series like, oh, well, then what if records get broken? Don't be the same. Well, yeah, okay, well.
Yeah, straight hands doesn't get that record if Brett Favre's not like, come here. Yeah, so there's always, you could always put an asterisk by something, but yeah, I completely agree. Like as far as complete linebacker, I'm actually going to be more critical. Like I don't think TJ Watt's a linebacker at all, because you put him in coverage, then to get destroyed. And I feel like a lot of his tackles for loss kind of play into what he does. He's basically a defensive end, but they mask him and stand him up as a linebacker, but he's always really close to the line of scrimmage. Like I don't think you could put him in the middle and expect him to take on blockers and then he's going to make tackles and stuff like that.
Well, JT, but that's different, right? That's outside linebacker to inside linebacker.
I get it. I just don't think if you're like, hey, we're just strictly not going to use it. If we just strictly used him as an off-ball linebacker, I don't think he would be effective. But as far as like linebackers, I think Darius Leonard's number 1, and all the stats that Don rattled off, he did that while he was hurt last year. So I think he's the best. I do think Fred Warner's right behind him. I like Wags still. He's up there. I think Devin White in Tampa is another one of those guys that I would put above TJ Watt as like an actual complete linebacker.
So, but see, that's where I would start to argue, maybe
because Devin White's a great pass rusher too, but he does all the other linebacker things. He can cover, he can come up and play the run.
But to me, it's what Peyton Manning talks about game records, right? Like Darius Leonard, to me, is a game record. Levante David, he's had the benefit of a great defensive line.
White.
Or I'm sorry, Devin White, right? Devin White. Hey, you could put David up there too. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, as far as like off-ball,
but that's my difference. That's my whole point, though. You see what I mean? Like no one gets confused. Alex Highsmith, if
TJ Watt didn't play in a 3-4 scheme where they're like, hey, look, man, you're just gonna be the strong side linebacker, and this is what you're going to do. Like, I don't think he'd be as effective. Now, that's not his fault, but yeah, I think rushing the passer, edge, best in the league. Total linebacker, I don't think he's top 5. That's just me.
But so you're telling me there's 5 other linebackers, just overall.
Complete linebackers, yeah.
But
well, let me ask you a question.
JT,
You know how bad linebacker play is in Pittsburgh, right? So you got Spillane, you hate Devin Bush, right? So let me ask you a question. So
Flores is going to help him out. So
if it was a scheme where the linebackers didn't rush the passer, because some schemes are like that, where they just want you to read, react, be off ball, sideline to sideline. You might rush every once in a while, but if that was a scheme where T.J. Watt wasn't asked to do what he's doing, you would have him over guys like we talked about, Leonard, Warner, Wags, Devin White. You want him just as strictly a linebacker over those guys?
But the thing would be that is the scheme. That's the scheme, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it's not. Yeah, the scheme is the scheme. I get it. I'm just saying, I'm glad we broke it up like that. He's an edge rusher. He's the best in the business at that. And that's that. I don't think he's the best linebacker, quote to say, in football.
But you're not even willing to put him top 5. That would be
I'm not.
But that would be like
because
saying,
because he does one thing extremely well.
See, but that would be like saying a receiver that can only run the go route and is crushing it is not top 5 or top 10 because he only can do that. At what point do you say, you know what? That's a heck of a weapon. Like if you're running go routes all the time with Randy Moss and he runs no other route,
Randy Moss is also a great route runner. He has great hands. He can get separation.
But that's
he
my
can
whole
do
point.
All the things that's required of the receiver position.
You're forgetting what is also required of T.J. Watt at the outside linebacker position. I just told you. Can he stop the run? Yes. Can he mess up the mesh when Lamar Jackson's trying to run it? Yes. Can he rush the quarterback? Yes. Can he just put enough pressure? Yes.
I agree. I agree with you. I'm not calling T.J. Watt trash. I know you're mad since that one time I told you and Chad that I was like, hey, T.J. Watt's going to start to decline. Then he got hurt. And I know you guys have been mad at me ever since. I'm just saying part of T.J. Watt, why you think he's a good run defender is I'm going to be a good run defender if my identity is turn me loose and I run into the backfield and cause chaos. Now, if he was out there on an island and he had to react, whether it's a run or pass, and then go engage people, I don't know if he'd be as good. That's just me. But hey, he's a sack leader. He's an all-pro. I'm still giving him his props. I didn't say it was trash.
There's disrespect there, but it's
Jerome Baker or something.
You didn't even put him in the top 5. How don't you put a linebacker that leads the league in sacks in the top 5 at some point?
Because he's not a linebacker. He's an edge rusher. If I run 5 wide, if I run the John Moxon offense and I got him out there covering a slot receiver, he's going to get roasted.
But at the same time, if you've got a power team, I don't know how good Fred Warner's going to be
if I have a power team,
in the run game.
If I have a power running team where he's just not going to tee off and go rush the quarterback, I'm nervous that they're running power to his side too.
I don't know. Are you? Because he's
I'm
a
very
heck
nervous.
of a defender. He's a heck of a defender on the line.
Great run defender. I think his run defending stats get inflated because he's rushing the passer. He's rushing the passer. And you either go get the quarterback or you mess somebody up and make somebody make a mistake.
If it was that easy, JT, everyone would have 22.5 sacks and 21
Robert Quinn had 18.5. What's your point?
I said everyone would have it. Everyone would have it.
Chandler Jones would get 20 sacks. I'm not. See, now you're going to make me say something really mean to you, and you're going to make me talk bad about T.J. Watt. Just take the compliment. I said he was the best edge rusher. You want him to be everything.
That wasn't the question. Marcus asked the question of linebacker, and we circled back to it, and you can't even put T.J. Watt in the top 5. That's disrespectful. That's okay. He's going to have 20.
Because I don't think he's a linebacker. I think he's an edge rusher who can't play defensive end. And that's not a bad thing. He's very good at what he does. He's the beast.
Marcus, see those backhanded compliments? Oh, I said he was the best edge rusher. He's a defensive end.
You know what?
He's an edge rusher that can't even play
defensive
end.
If T.J. Watt were listening to this show right now, TJ, I hope you're listening. If TJ was listening to this show right now, he would tell you to shut up. You know why? Because he wants to be called an edge rusher. That means he gets paid more money.
But that wasn't the question. I don't think the Steelers are going to care whether JT Marcus.
Well, they care about what GOAT Marcus says. They care about what he says.
So let's hear what Marcus got to say about this. Let's hear what Marcus got to say now.
He's definitely the best edge rusher in football. I don't think it's close. I think he's the third best defensive player in football. I think he's definitely a top 5 linebacker if you're just talking overall. But I think that number 5, though, off the simple fact that the other side of being a linebacker is what he's not the best at, and that's not his fault, right? It's the scheme. He is asked to do this one thing, that is rush the quarterback and disrupt plays in the backfield. He does that very, very well. So it's not his fault that if he gets dropped back into coverage, he get roasted. That's just because he's not built like that. Like, that's not what he's asked to do.
His game, Don.
I still put him top 5. Like, I'd still have him up there with your Darius Leonards and your Fred Warners.
You got him top 5. That's all I care about.
But yeah, I mean, I look at TJ Watt and I think I really think TJ Watt has the potential to, like, TJ Watt, I think, is one of those guys that it doesn't matter who else is around him defensively. Like, TJ Watt's going to be TJ Watt. Like there are other players who kind of only really excel when they're the guy on the defense. Right. There are some guys that only really excel offensively when they're the guy on the offense. TJ Watt, I feel like, was one of those guys because he's so good at what he does. You could put him on a team with Aaron Donald, sure, and yes, he'd benefit from that because it's Aaron freaking Donald. But you could also put him on a defense with a bunch of nobodies on the D line, and he would still be TJ freaking Watt because he's TJ Watt and he's just that good. Speaking of players that are just that good, let's talk about the offensive side of things now. This is my favorite player on the team.
Can we say that I won that debate against JT because Marcus agreed with me? Thank you, Marcus.
Let's talk about a guy who was just about as close as it gets to an unstoppable force in college at Alabama, Najee Harris. He is now entering his second season in the NFL. I don't know who started first. I'm just going to throw it out there, and whoever wants to jump can jump. Will Najee Harris have a sophomore jump this season, or will he have a sophomore slump this season?
You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Sure. Go ahead. I've been going first a lot.
I hate to say this because I actually like him as a person. I think he's a cool dude. I think it's going to be a slump, and there's a couple reasons why. One of the obvious reasons is the offensive line. Like, it was bad last year, and it's going to be bad again this year unless something miraculous happens. But I feel that he will have a slump because he's likely not going to have as much volume as he did last year. Like, you already hear him coming out and saying, like, hey, like, he's going to come off the field on certain plays. And, like, I'm pretty sure he was, like, one of the most, like, high snap rate running backs in the league last year. And last year, he was tied for first in targets by running back with Austin Eckler. And I think he was number 1 in, like, yards after contact. So what that tells me is Ben Roethlisberger was old and couldn't throw. So he checked it down, got Najee Harris involved in the passing game, probably more than a normal quarterback would. And then also, too, that means he's running into a brick wall because the line is bad. So I look at the quarterbacks as well, like Trubisky and let's say, or Kenny Pickett starts. Those guys are athletic. They're probably more likely to, use their legs and take off if things break down and just check it down to Najee. So I don't think there's any way he gets 94 targets this year. And then I don't think his yards before contact numbers improved. And I think it has to do with, like I said, bad blocking. And then also, like, he's not really an explosive guy. Like, I know he wasn't really breaking long runs at Alabama. And I think his longest run was like 25 yards last year. And he did it like once or twice. But he's not a great athlete. I think he had, under 4 yards per carry. So it's just a recipe, like what they're saying. His role is going to be reduced. And, like, he's already an inefficient running back that's going to get less volume. I know Don always says I'm overreacting. I'm looking at Trent Richardson this season too. Like, I think he's going to slump, and I think he's going to be a disappointment this year. And they're going to say, like, wow, maybe we shouldn't have spent the first round pick on this guy. Maybe we should have spent it on a lineman instead.
Marcus, notice the hate from the guy. First, he hates on TJ Watt. Now, Najee Harris, like,
I created the argument for TJ Watt for you to get the answer right. I said edge, and I called him the top edge. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
I don't know if you need to edit.
He's the best player of all time. Jeez, your problem is you're never happy.
I'm pretty sure he just said Najee Harris is not a good athlete. Did he say that?
He's not.
Wow. Listen, Marcus, he is going to have a sophomore jump just the way he jumps over all of those defenders. Like, he is going to jump people
when you run a 4.8.
Now the question is, what do you measure that jump on? Because he may not have what do you have? 74 catches,
Yeah, that's
1,200 rushing yards, but he only averaged 3.9 yards a carry. That is not very good in the NFL. But I believe it's opposite of what JT was saying. The line may not significantly improve, but all those guys are older. They're playing a second year together. And I think having Ben hurt them because teams could fill the box with 8, knowing Ben was not going to throw it more than 10 yards. And now with Mitch and Kenny Pickett, whoever it is, can throw the deep ball. And JT believes, because he's always pessimistic, he thinks Mitch and Kenny Pickett being athletic and running is going to hurt his rushing yards. Well, I don't believe so because now there's more of a threat.
It's going to hurt his target opportunities.
Let me finish. The fact that they're athletic and they can run, now when they run those RPOs and they run inside zone, guess what? They need to respect the edge guys, need to respect the fact that Mitch and Kenny Pickett could pull it and get outside. Whereas with Ben, why would you ever fall for him keeping the ball? You're always crashing on the line to Najee Harris. And we talk about
running an RPO at Ben in the first place. That's terrible.
But again, now, thanks. That's my next point. Matt Canada now can run his actual offense because he has a guy like Mitch or Kenny Pickett that not only can throw it more than 10, 15 yards, but is athletic. So that's going to open up things the way he wants to run it, meaning Matt Canada. So is the volume going to be there? No, I agree with you, JT. But I think his impact and how much more dynamic he will be and how much more Najee Harris maybe can take over games on the lesser volume is what's going to stand out because they brought in guys like Pickens. They still have Deontay Johnson. It's going to be a different offense, and Harris, I think, is going to be the main beneficiary of it because he doesn't have to take all that wear and tear, and it's going to be a little easier. He probably went through one of his toughest seasons he'll have physically, and I think it's only going to get easier this second year because all those pieces, George Pickens came in, Calvin Austin came in, like speed guys that'll stretch the field, and now he may see 6-7 man boxes, and that's going to help out O-line as well as him.
See, I'm really curious. I'm really curious why. I mean, obviously you believe in Najee, and at one point I did too, but I'm really curious to why you think it can't be both as far as like the issues of why he's ineffective. I feel like you're just blaming it all on Ben and the O-line. Like, there's some guys, if you would have put in that situation, they would have balled out. Like, I think I think prime Le'Veon Bell would have balled out in that situation.
No, with his running style,
and he can make people.
But his running style is not conducive to that O-line.
Let me ask you a serious question. Do you think prime Le'Veon Bell with that same team last year, same line, same old ass Ben,
same stats?
Do you think he averages at least 4 yards per carry?
4.1, but it's the same stats.
No, he at least averages 4 to 4.5. I think.
No, 4.5. No way. You're dreaming.
Yeah,
because
no way. Because he can make people miss. Like, I feel like you need to go turn on the Najee tape.
I think you're forgetting
like, he's not explosive.
Marcus,
he's not explosive.
I know you're young, but explain to this guy, JT, his running style. He had really good offensive lines. This was not a good offensive line. His running style, he would have
still wasn't explosive at Bama with one of the top lines in the country.
No. I'm talking about Le'Veon Bell. His weight, his patient running with that offensive line, he loses a lot more yards than you think.
He's a more explosive runner.
But what's that got to do with when there's no hole? Najee Harris could break tacklers just like Le'Veon Bell. So that explosion when there's nothing there.
Create a hole for Najee Harris. Like, he can't make anything happen. Like,
unless he's
everybody's
Barry
always
Sanders.
like, oh, the hurdles are so great. You know why he has to hurdle people? Because he can't run past them. If you can't run around somebody, you might as well jump over him. Like,
unless he's Barry Sanders.
I'm not trying to be negative on the guy, but I just don't think he's a great athlete. And I'm telling you, a big reason why people think he is going to be good is he got 74 catches last year. Like, you know how it is when running backs can catch and, they can put up some rushing yards. Like, everybody thinks they're going to be good.
That's my whole point. He's going to have a bigger impact this year than last year on lesser touches.
I don't think he's an efficient enough player to overcome his athletic limitations and just all of a sudden just be this efficient player.
Marcus, I can't believe Najee Harris, the way JT talks, is even in the NFL. What's this guy doing in the NFL?
You know what? I changed my answer. He's the best running back ever. He's Marshall Faulk.
I win again, Marcus.
Breaking ankles, taking his 70 yards to the house because he's never done that in his career. He'll just take his 70 yards to the house every other play. I'm thinking of Chris Johnson 2,000-yard type of season for him. I'm switching my answer. Don convinced
Marcus,
me.
That is not.
It's going to be Najee 2K.
I said Harris won't probably have the stats he had last year, as good of stats, but he's going to have more of a part and be more dynamic with this team that defenses need to worry about.
So Najee Harris last year averaged about 18 carries a game. And he averaged like 71 yards a game. If I'm not mistaken, this wide receiver room didn't get any better. Like this wide receiver room isn't better than the wide receiver room that was last year. They lost 2 of their wide receivers from that room last year, and Juju Smith-Schuster and James. And you still got Chase Claypool. You still have Deontay Johnson. Obviously, you bring in Jordan Pickens, but none of those guys are, in my estimation, wide receiver ones on this level. I'm not relying on Chase. If
you ain't got nothing to say about that, Don.
I was gonna let him finish.
I do not. And it's not that these guys are bad, but with an exception of Deontay Johnson, we'll see, how he looks this season. He had a solid season last season. This isn't, none of these wide receivers, in my estimation, are going to strike fear in the hearts of opposing defensive backs. This isn't a.
I disagree. Deontay Johnson does at this.
He's a route runner. He'll route you up, and Claypool's a freak.
That's what I said. With an exception of Deontay Johnson, we'll see how
Claypool. You got to respect it.
I don't respect Chase Claypool.
Ben Roethlisberger will do that to you.
Watch what Claypool does to the Bengals. I hope they feel the same way.
Ask the Eagles if you got to fear him rookie year.
I don't like Chase Claypool. I'll just be honest. I think Najee Harris is going to have a similar season to what he did last season. I mean, behind a terrible O-line, he had 1,200 yards rushing. I don't think it's far-fetched to think that even if he doesn't have the amount of carries he has, let's say his carries drop by 30 to 40, let's say high end 50. I think you could still look at him as potentially being 1,000-yard rusher this season. And as far as the catches with 94 targets and 74 receptions, he'll be somewhere around there again this season. He's not going to have the JT kind of made it seem like the drop off statistically is going to be steep. It's not going to be that steep. I feel like it'll be about the same. I don't think he'll match those numbers because you have a Mitchell Trubisky, you have a Kenny Pickett, and the offense can kind of flow more freely. And to JT's point, a lot of the targets and receptions Najee Harris was getting was because Ben Roethlisberger is a statue, and when you're sending 10 people down his throat, he's got to get rid of the ball, and you just throw it to the closest person to you. But aside from that, Najee Harris will be okay. He had 10 combined touchdowns last season, 7 on the ground, 3 receiving. He'll be somewhere around there. I think he'll have more rushing touchdowns this season than he did last season. He'll definitely get 10, I assume. So, okay, he loses 150, maybe 200 yards rushing, gains three rushing touchdowns, and probably somewhere around 3 to 5 receiving touchdowns. That's a jump in my estimation. I think he'll improve this season. I think he'll be better. I won't talk about him not being an athlete or being athletic because I don't. That's not based on any fact or any truth. But
that definitely is. Go look at his numbers. I'm telling you, he's not explosive.
Right now on my phone. Right now on my phone.
Najee Harris will not be on your next gen stat highlights. He won't be on that. I feel like, okay, yes. Do you have to be an explosive athlete to be a great running back? No, not necessarily. But I'm just telling you, Najee, it's not like he's on the Chiefs where everything's wide open. This is the Steelers.
Najee last season was art. I know this isn't a fantasy show, but let's just talk about it. Najee Harris was RB4 in fantasy last year.
Straight up volume. But go look at how he got it. You can't cut his catches in half. What does that look like?
If you want to make the volume argument, then if Najee Harris was good last season because of volume, then Derrick Henry
wasn't good last year. I don't think he was.
What I'm saying is, if volume is the reason why Najee Harris had posted 1,200 yards last season, then Derrick Henry's not a good running back because he is the epitome of volume at that position.
Now we're being facetious. Now, come on, you can look at Derrick Henry and tell he's a good running back. You know why? because he's running past the whole Jaguars team and slowing it down to throw everyone to the ground.
Jaguars stink.
He does it to everybody.
JT just wishes he had a Najee Harris.
First of all, the Jaguars.
No, I don't.
Yes.
Because you know,
yeah, you're right. Sorry.
He'd be doing the same thing behind our line, running it into the back of linemen and not going anywhere.
Also have a better offensive line.
Who?
Than the Tennessee Titans have a better offensive line than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Listen, Marcus, I disagree. We got to go back to the receivers part. JT can say all he wants athletic.
No, I agree with you. The receivers are really good.
But listen, you know,
I don't. You're right. I don't want it to sound like I think they're trash. They're not.
Well, no, but this is the difference. It's a whole combination. You're forgetting the tight end, right? They're going to use the tight end. Pat Freiermuth is a really good NFL tight end, and you might say, well, they don't have they lost Juju. Okay, big deal. Juju was never a vertical threat. So if you want to talk about losing James Washington, I'll go back to what JT always tries to make fun of me when I bring up a third tier type player. Ooh, I'm really scared that they lost James Washington. Okay, who cares? And Juju, they've replaced with a younger, I shouldn't say younger. I take that back because he might not actually be younger, but faster, more explosive George Pickens. And now you have a guy like Austin coming in, and you still got Johnson and Claypool. I'm just saying, with a quarterback that can throw more than 15 yards, defenses are still going to stop that Steeler offense, but it's not going to be like last year where they can put 8 in the box. I'm telling you, in the NFL, you put 8 in the box, I don't
Claypool
care if
one-on-one is going to be nasty.
I don't think the wide receiver room is terrible. It's better than the wide receiver room I've got in Green Bay.
But it's better than last year's, and because of the quarterback difference, no disrespect to Ben, but this isn't Ben of 2014. It's Ben of 2022 that he really could not pass the ball past 10 yards efficiently.
I think they'll produce better than last year because they have a more capable quarterback at the position, whether it's Trubisky.
That's my
Pickens.
Part of my point. That's why Harris will be.
But I
right.
don't think at face value, without seeing them play ball this season at face value, this wide receiver room is that much better than last year's wide receiver room, or that much worse. It was my point. It's not that the guys they have stink. It's that the wide receiver room. Yes, they've added talent and when you throw in tight ends, obviously, but I was just talking about the X, the Y, and the Z. I wasn't really referring to the guys that line up on the line and block or pass or catch. But when you look at those guys, that talent is about the same on paper as last year. Obviously, when you have a guy in Mitchell Trubisky who can throw farther than 15 yards on the field, obviously when you have a guy in Kenny Pickett who can do the same thing, and both guys are also mobile, sure, they'll probably produce better, and that'll make them better as the season progresses. But just as far as who's on the roster, it's not, to me anyway, not that big of a difference as far as this wide receiver room isn't head and shoulders better than last year's wide receiver room is the point that I'm making.
I kind of agree with Don. I think you're underestimating them because Ben suppressed them a lot. They got some talented receivers, man. Deontay is a beast route runner. Go look at Chase Claypool's rookie year. You see what he can do. We had 10 touchdowns. That, and then you add the Pickens kid who, if it wasn't for off-field issues, he might have been a first-round pick. If there's one thing I trust the Steelers to always have, they always do good with receivers. So you get a quarterback that can throw the ball 20 yards downfield. I gotta say, they're gonna improve.
Let's talk about the Steelers as a whole. This is a team that is locked in at 500 under the Mike Tomlin era. They've never not been 500, including last season. They went 8-1. I highly doubt they'll go 8-1 again, but it's also hard to bet against this team as far as at least being 500. JT, how many wins do the Pittsburgh Steelers accumulate this season?
I feel like I shouldn't even answer this question because if I don't say they're going to the Super Bowl, somebody's going to jump down my throat. But realistically, I went through this schedule and I only felt confident giving them 5 wins.
I think you're frozen, Marcus. I think you're frozen.
Nah, his tape line is moving. He's there. No, realistically, like I think they play some tough games. And
don't even try to explain it.
No, I'm not. I'm not confident. I'm not. Here's the thing. I don't think they'll beat Baltimore. I don't think they'll beat Cincinnati. And okay, maybe they split with Cleveland. Like I just don't think. I couldn't see them winning more than 5 games.
They're going to beat the Browns both games because they won't have Deshaun Watson. I can't believe you, JT. I can't believe you. You can give your prediction, Don. I don't really know what else to JT.
I mean, listen, it's Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. They're not going under 500. They're 9-8. They're going to be 9-8. I mean, this team won't be special, but they're not going to be as bad as JT said. 5 wins, like they didn't even have only 5 wins when they had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, like at the helm. So, I mean, regardless of who's under center, this team has enough talent. We talked about the receivers, Najee Harris, tight end. The defense will get better. Flores comes in. Hopefully that helps a guy like Devin Bush, plus Devin Bush now 2nd full year out of ACL. Still got TJ Watt, Cam Hayward still playing at a high level. So they're going to go 9-8 because their head coach is also Mike Tomlin. So regardless of maybe they're not as good as in the past talent-wise, Mike Tomlin gets them to at least 500, at least 8 wins. So I'm going to go 9-8. By the way, Marcus, sorry to say this, they're going to sweep the Bengals.
I can't believe you just said that. Listen, jeez. The Steelers have got a game against the Patriots. They've got 2 games against the Browns. They've got a game against the Jets. They've got your Dolphins. They've got the Saints. They've got.
They'll lose that Dolphins game. We already know.
It's in Miami.
They'll lose that Dolphins game.
And you to say 5 wins, I just
the schedule.
And you're confident with 5 wins, dude. The Panthers.
That's why I said 5 wins. The Panthers is one of the wins I gave them.
Okay, okay. Let's just go down. I have them sweeping the Browns. The Browns won't have Deshaun Watson. I would hope the NFL gets it right this time, and they won't have Deshaun Watson. They'll beat the Panthers. They'll beat the Falcons. They'll win one of those games against Baltimore. They'll probably beat the Saints. They'll beat your Dolphins, and they'll beat the Jets, and they'll beat the Patriots. That's like I just listed.
Confident they're going to beat the Patriots. See, that's what I'm saying. Like
I am supremely confident.
Confidently, I can say I confidently said they can only win 5 of those games. That's just what I think.
When in the history of the Mike Tomlin era have the Steelers only been capped out at 5 games?
Standard is a standard. I get it, but it's always the first time for everything.
Not under Mike T. Not under Mike T. Not under Coach T.
And I'm going to pull this card for comedic effect. I can't believe, as an African-American man, you're going to sit here on this show and say that you don't have faith in the team coached by probably the only African-American head coach in football right now to win at least 8 games. Shame on you, JT.
I love Mike Tomlin. He's one of my favorite coaches. It's got nothing to do with him. It's schedule. It's a schedule. It's the quarterbacks they got. It's Najee Harris, slow ass. The O-line isn't better.
8 games with Mason Rudolph and Ducky Hodges, dude.
Good defense.
The duo you have here with Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett are better than Rudolph and Hodges.
I believe when I see it. Hey, look. I think that schedule they had that year, because it's funny, we had a show about that. That's the year they made the Mika Fitzpatrick trade, right? And I was like, they made that trade that year because that's the year Ben went down. I was like, they looked at the rest of the schedule and was like, we can win this with any quarterback we have. We just got to show up the defense. So I don't think the schedule for them is all that easy. Like, I know they could easily go 8 or 9 wins, but I'm just saying 5 because I look at the schedule. I'm like, I'm not confident that this Steelers team will just be able to overcome everything because Mike Tomlin is the coach and just be able to close games. Like the Patriots, like are you going to put $100 that they're just going to beat the Patriots?
Yeah, I would. I'd make that bet right now on this show with you that I put $100
Don,
down.
You would bet $100 they beat the Bengals twice?
100 to beat the Bengals twice? I'm not going to make it with you, but I would.
I'm not going to give them the satisfaction.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'd feel more certain with that than beating the Patriots.
What?
The
That's
what I'm talking about.
What are we talking about?
None of this stuff is solid. I'm telling you, I think
But that's
the
it,
Steelers'
JT.
schedule
You said
is
it
low
right.
key difficult.
But all of them are. Look at the Bengals schedule. Like all of them are, JT.
But the
That's
Bengals
the
have
whole
Joe
point.
Burrow. They got Joe Mixon. It's a good team. They just went to the Super Bowl. So yes, I have more faith in them.
And so have a lot of other teams.
You want us to do the Bengals podcast?
Marcus doesn't want me to. But listen, so have a lot of other teams won a Super Bowl, got into the Super Bowl, and then guess what happened the next year? They didn't get there. And you can say all you want, Burrow, Chase, but there's film out there now, as you always say. And JT, you just said it. We don't know. It's sketchy, schedule, this and that. Exactly. So look at the history of Mike Tomlin. That is why Marcus and I are saying at least 8 wins, and I'm going with 9 because there's 17 games.
Okay. And I'm not bashing you for that.
So let's do this. Next time I'm down in Orlando to visit you, let's put a friendly lunch bet on this that they don't. That they win more than 5 games. That's all. You're saying 5. I'll say just more. If they win 6, you buy me lunch.
All right, I'll take you. If they win more than 5 games, I'll take you to G.O.A.T. Does that sound good?
They got one in Orlando? I'm coming down to Orlando to visit.
It's right next to the house.
Right. Marcus, you heard that, right? As long as they win more than 5, if they win 5 or less, JT, I'll buy lunch there for you.
And the 15 people that watched this that heard that as well. It's on record before the season. That's what's happening.
Look. I don't shy away from my takes. Just like I didn't shy away from saying that it was going to be a sweep in the finals. Like, hey, look, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, that also was just not founded in any fact. It seems like what happens is you make these.
Let's not go back to the archive, especially for the guy. Not you, G.O.A.T. Marcus, but this guy. This guy's predictions in the archive have been terrible.
They've been
unbelievable. At least I own mine.
I called the Heat going to the finals. I called Milwaukee winning it all last year. I called Golden State going to the finals, and then I said Celtics in 7. And I hope the Warriors win, but I'm telling you, it's probably going to be the Celtics. You
also
in
said
7.
Mason Rudolph was a Hall of Fame player.
JT, the sweep was over after game 1.
Okay.
Like that's how wrong your prediction was. You couldn't even get past game 1.
You took the soft way. You're like, oh, it's gonna go game 7. I don't know which one to pick.
I said
either one.
Marcus, did I not pick the Celtics?
We had to force you to make a pick. Don't act like you like pounded your hand on the table. It was like, yeah, it's Warriors in 7. Like, no doubt about it. Like you were straddling the fence and somebody had to push you off.
You're just making hot takes that are not. You're just making hot takes that are not.
No, you don't take any risks.
Because I'm right. Why would I take risks when I know what's going to happen?
You're a 6-10 prediction person. That's how you bet.
Hey,
not the worst,
than 5.
Not the best.
6 is better than 5. That's what you are.
I listen, people. If you don't know why I have these guys on the show, it's because I've talked a combined maybe 25 minutes of a 65-minute podcast. It's beautiful. It makes my life so much easier. I do enjoy having JT and the Don on the show all the time. If you didn't catch the episode with the Dolphins, then I don't know what's wrong with you, because that one was just as good. A little bit longer and a little bit more debating on that show than this one. This one was kind of cut and dry. JT threatened not to participate before we started recording the show, so I guess I should give JT a special thanks for actually participating tonight. Fellas, please let everybody know at home where they can find you and all your content.
Yeah, you can find JT and the Don All Sports Podcast, all of the major platforms. You find all of your other favorite podcasts, and as well as on social media, IG, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. Follow us, our handle at JT and the Don, and JT does a great job with the social media. So I'll give him props there. Way better than his predictions.